Hey everyone, my name is Riley, and in this video we will be taking a look at Airalo versus Nomad to figure out which is the best eSIM provider. Although there is key differences between both of these eSIM providers, the main thing that it is going to come down to is the country specifically that you are traveling to. So I will show you exactly what I mean by that, as well as some of the other key differences. But before we jump in, I will leave affiliate links in the description of this video to both Airalo and Nomad. And if you use those links, you will get the best discount and deals on both of these eSIM providers. So I have both Airalo and Nomad pulled up right here. And the first thing that I will actually mention is in terms of the quality and the signal speed that you get. It doesn't matter which of these providers that you go for. Both Nomad and Airalo have no say and no impact in the speed that you get, because it is actually going to come from the network of the SIM that you have. So it's not like one is faster than the other. And when we are discussing this, the main thing is going to come down to price. So essentially, the reason that this changes depending on the country that you are going to is because they have different packages and different countries that they offer. So if I just click into Airalo, for example, and we go for Sweden, we can go to Sweden right here, and they have a specific package for if I was traveling to Sweden. This is going to give me a Swedish eSIM. Whereas if I go to Nomad right here, and once again, I search for Sweden, nothing is going to come up. And instead, I either have to go for an entire Europe package, the global package, or probably the best would be the Nordic package, which if we go in, this is going to include Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark. So this is the only way that I can get access to Sweden is by purchasing one of the bigger packages. So in this case, if you do have to purchase a bigger package that includes more than one country, then it is going to be more expensive. However, country to country, for example, if I just go for Spain, which I know they have on here. So if we go for Spain on Nomad, and we also go for Spain inside of Airalo, then Spain is usually going to be cheaper on Nomad. So let's say 5 gigabytes of data right here. We can see this is $11.50 on Airalo, whereas 5 gigabytes of data, okay, this is actually the same price, $11.50, $11.50. 10 gigabytes on Nomad is going to be slightly cheaper, coming in at $17 compared to $18. So this probably wasn't the best example. Let's take Italy, for example, and see if this is any different. So yeah, with Italy, we can get 10 gigabytes right here for $19 on Nomad. Whereas the same 10 gigabytes of data is going to be $5 more expensive on Airalo. So that is something to keep in mind. And what I would do is, even though Nomad is usually going to be cheaper, just pull them both up and search for the specific country that you are looking for. Usually Nomad is going to be cheaper if it has it. But now let's take a deeper dive into exactly what I meant when I say that Airalo is going to be cheaper if you do have to buy a package. So let's now say that I am going to Sweden. I can just get the Swedish package on Airalo. But I need to buy the Nordic or even the Europe package on Nomad. Let's click into Nordic right here. And let's say once again, we want 10 gigabytes of data. So 10 gigabytes of data in Sweden on Airalo is $18. And I can't even get 10 gigabytes of data on Nomad because of the package. I instead have to get 5 gigabytes of data, and it's just as expensive. So I can literally get double the data in Sweden on Airalo than I can in Nomad. So you can see there's a big difference right there. Then we can do the same. I know they also don't have some big countries like Argentina. And instead for Argentina on Nomad, we have to go global, which is super expensive. Whereas on Airalo, we can just go Argentina, pull this up right here. And instead of paying $36 for 5 gigabytes on Nomad, instead we can get 5 gigabytes for $23. So you can see if we do need to buy one of the packages, then it is a lot more expensive on Nomad. But country to country, if you can actually find the country on Nomad, it's usually going to be cheaper on Nomad. Not always, so it's definitely worth like cross-referencing and double-checking both. But usually, single country is cheaper on Nomad. If the country isn't on Nomad, so for example, I know Colombia isn't either. If you wanted to buy for Colombia, then it's always going to be better to go for Airalo, as it's going to be a lot cheaper. Now, another thing to compare is actually the regional eSIMs. So let's say that you are traveling across Latin America, for example, and you do want a regional eSIM that is going to work across multiple different countries. Well, in this case, which is going to be cheaper? With Nomad, it's once again very strange because they don't offer any kind of like Latin American package. You have to go for global instead, but they do offer a European package. So this is the one downside to Nomad that I really don't like, is they just have some strange package options. Like, I don't understand why they would have a travel sim for Europe, but not one for South America. Airalo is a lot more consistent in this. But either way, let's go to Europe right here, and let's compare these both. So 10 gigabytes on Nomad for Europe is going to cost $22. And then 10 gigabytes on Airalo is going to cost $37, so a lot more expensive. The Europe package with Airalo does cover slightly more countries, so we have 35 countries on Nomad. You can push this up to 36, but it is usually going to be more expensive, whereas Airalo is going to cover 39 countries. So for both of these, you can click in and search the country that you want to check. So let's go for Denmark. We can see Denmark right here. And then we can do the same, checking the country list and search for Denmark, and we can see it's here as well. So those are the regional eSIMs right there. And then the final thing that we want to touch on is the global eSIM. Now, before we actually compare these and I touch on the global eSIM and what this is, one major benefit of Airalo is the fact that you can actually get eSIMs that allow you to call and text. So usually with the local eSIMs, the regional eSIMs, and all of the SIMs on Nomad, it just offers you data and there is no way to get calls and texts. However, specifically with this global eSIM on Airalo, you can get calls and texts. So right here we can see 5 gigabytes. It is pretty expensive at $50, but if you do need calls and texts, then Airalo is the only one that offers this. Apart from that though, let's go in. So we have 106 and 109 countries compared to 124 on Airalo. So once again, Airalo does have more countries and we can search for these in here, the country that you need or the countries that you need. And then if we just go back over to the data plan right here, we can see the global eSIM on Airalo for 10 gigabytes is going to be $59, whereas we actually can't get 10 gigabytes on Nomad. So if you do need more data, like any more data than 5 on this global plan, then you can only really go for Airalo. But let's go 5 gigabytes right here, $35, and it's $45 on Nomad. On top of this, on Nomad, it only lasts 30 days, whereas on Airalo, it's going to last 60 days. So overall, that can be a little bit confusing, but let me just clarify this one more time. If you need an individual country, then Nomad is going to be cheaper as long as you can find it. If you can't find the country on Nomad, instead of buying a package that contains that country, then Airalo is going to be cheaper. In terms of the regional eSIMs, if you need an eSIM for Europe, then once again, Nomad is going to be cheaper for this, as long as they have that region. So if we go for Europe, which Nomad have, then this is going to be cheaper. However, if we need like a Latin America or Africa that Nomad doesn't have, instead they just have global, then Airalo is going to be cheaper once again. Airalo is the only one that allows you to get texts and calls, and then if you do need a global eSIM, then Airalo is going to be hands down the cheapest. So overall, it really does depend on what kind of data you need and for which country you need it for. We can't say subjectively that one is better than the other, and it really depends on where you are traveling, how much data you need, to which of these eSIM providers is going to be better for you specifically.